Millions of Queenslanders have spent their first day in lockdown as health authorities work to control the spread of the highly infectious Delta strain. It's been revealed the latest cluster of the virus stemmed from an unvaccinated repeat overseas traveller who was being treated in a Brisbane hospital. Here's state political reporter Rachel Rieger.
A bustling city now eerily quiet as more than 3.5 million Queenslanders locked down. 3 community-acquired cases were recorded overnight as the state grapples with the Delta variant.
We are considering these low risk, so this is very good news.
All are close contacts of existing cases who tested positive in quarantine. One is linked to the Portuguese restaurant cluster. The second is connected to a Virgin Airlines crew member from Sydney. And the third is the brother of a 19-year-old unvaccinated receptionist who worked at the Prince Charles Hospital near the COVID ward.
They became infectious on the 26th of June. They were up in Magnetic Island. They then returned down to Brisbane and they did attend a school holiday tennis camp.
The Premier says there was a directive in place and the casual clerical worker should have been vaccinated.
There will be a full and thorough investigation and someone will be held responsible.
The issue here is that this individual worked outside the COVID ward. She did not work in the ward. I believe that is semantics.
But the Health Minister says it's not her fault.
I believe that someone has failed here, yes, and there will be an investigation.
What has unfolded is an absolute failure of the health system in this state.
Genomic sequencing revealed the woman contracted the Delta strain from a frequent overseas traveller being treated for COVID at the Prince Charles Hospital.
There are a large number of people that are travelling overseas for business for a whole range of reasons, and there are questions that need to be answered.
I'm running out of ideas here about what we can do. Now, this is not normal for a pandemic. Most viruses in a pandemic don't become worse, they become better.
Almost 17,000 vaccines were administered yesterday, a new record. While Queenslanders are being commended for coming forward, the Health Minister is concerned about Pfizer stocks. She says Queensland's request for an extra 152,000 doses from the Commonwealth has been denied.
We got 45,000 vaccines delivered yesterday, and on that delivery and our calculations, we have about 8 days stock.
The lockdown measures will be reviewed on Friday as the state remains braced for more cases. Rachel Rieger, ABC News, Brisbane.
The snap lockdown is said to cost businesses $600 million in losses. Commerce Queensland says it's made worse by the lack of a JobKeeper-style payment. And as Lexi Hamilton-Smith explains, it's also led to holiday chaos for families.
Huge testing lines at Sandgate, the centre of the Delta scare.
Follow the rules and we'll be out of this in no time.
The local school's a hotspot. It's where the infected brother of the COVID-positive hospital worker is enrolled. He also visited a tennis centre while contagious.
On the lockdowns in the past, people have kind of still come out to get their coffee and stuff, but this time I think people are a bit more scared.
Like the last 4 shutdowns, city streets are deserted, businesses devastated.
There's a bit of anxiety and there's a lot of frustration and anger when this happens.
Caterers like Jerome Dalton in need of financial support, but there is none.
I mean, there'll be people this weekend that will close for the last time. 3 days is enough to do that for a lot of businesses.
Queensland's small businesses have been abandoned in their hour of need.
It's thrown holiday plans into chaos too. For this Melbourne man, a week-long trip to the Gold Coast lasted 3 days.
We were at Movie World at the time and literally said, nah, let's just change it and try and get home as soon as possible.
Pain in the backside, but just got to push through, and we're probably now going to go and get tested to make sure we're clean from the virus.
On the holiday strip, there's concern over border changes. For the first time, residents now need passes to enter both Queensland and New South Wales.
There will be a hindrance. It'll probably scare New South Wales customers wanting to come into Coolangatta maybe.
While in Cairns, tourism operators are struggling yet again, with 60% of the usual school holiday market unable to get there due to COVID.
We're looking at an estimated $6 million a day of losses from within the industry.
but it adds up to $200 million a day in lost trade across the southeast. Lexi Hamilton-Smith, ABC News.
No cases have been recorded in North Queensland so far after the positive case from Brisbane visited Townsville and Magnetic Island while infectious. Worried residents have spent all day waiting to be tested in long queues, but local health authorities insist they have enough resources to deal with the spike in demand.
Facing their greatest threat of the pandemic so far, North Queenslanders want to get tested.
Now that it's here, I think everyone's going into panic stations.
But the demand is overwhelming. There's only enough capacity to test people who've been to an exposure site or have COVID symptoms.
The advice we're getting from Queensland Health is to remain at home rather than spend the next 10 to 12 hours in a queue.
More than 900 people were tested at the Kerwin Stadium yesterday. Local records are expected to be broken today.
The Townsville community's done a stellar job responding to the call from the Chief Health Officer.
Testing capacity was doubled while cars queued.
We can absolutely deal with the demand for the increased testing that we're seeing.
A new private testing lab was inundated hours after opening. Another will come online tomorrow.
The more people we get through testing and hopefully can clear, the greater the opportunity it is for the 3-day lockdown then to be lifted.
Some good news for Palm Island residents, with exposure at the ferry terminal now considered unlikely.
Which significantly reduces the risk for those people from Palm Island.
Magnetic Island is now largely cut off, with ferry services reduced as authorities race to test more than 2,000 people currently there. Extra staff are on duty, but residents and tourists have been waiting on foot for hours. Tourist Naomi Wilson is locked down on the island with her young family.
And it is really, really quiet here. Other than the COVID testing lineup, it is like a ghost town.
It's quiet at shopping centres on the mainland too. Tourism operators are hurting, yet some local cafes are bustling.
We're just doing takeaway only. We're still being really busy.
North Queenslanders are now settling into their first lockdown in more than a year.
I think we've been pretty lucky, and then it's pretty big shock when you look around now.
It's all right. It's only 3 days.
Chloe Shumicki, ABC News, Townsville.